Third, we celebrate an historic milestone on Ukraine's path towards the European Union, the opening of the first negotiation cluster. In all these areas, the common denominator was unity, and building this unity is a daily endeavor. And this is thanks, in no small part, to the tireless efforts of Nikos Christodoulidis and the Cypriot Presidency in the last month, working in close cooperation with the European Parliament and the Commission. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you very much, dear Nikos. In the face of growing external pressures on our competitiveness and prosperity, it is more important than ever for the European Union to accelerate its own economic homework. We must strengthen our capacity to invest, to become more competitive and more autonomous. And this is what we are doing. Since the beginning of the year, we have been moving our competitiveness and simplification agenda forward with one target in mind: making Europe more attractive for investment. First, by identifying priorities for our action during our meeting in Aldenbizen. Then, by agreeing our own Europe One Market agenda and roadmap. And now, by keeping up the momentum for implementation through regular stock-taking at each of our European Council meetings. This is also what we are doing through progress on the Savings and Investment Unions and the future European Competitiveness Fund. We are putting in place new instruments to channel capital into innovation, industry and jobs. But Europe's competitiveness also has an important external dimension. Yesterday, we held a strategic discussion on how to address global economic imbalances. Some of these imbalances have become unsustainable, and we are committed to economic relations based on rules and reciprocity, because fair competition requires a level playing field. This is why we need a European response based on two pillars: unity among ourselves and a reinforced dialogue with our main economic partners. Leaders asked the Commission to work on two tasks. First, to continue engaging in the constructive dialogue with our main economic partners to defend our economic and security interests. Second, to develop and eventually complement our toolbox in the area of trade defence and industrial policy, to make sure that the European Union has all the instruments it needs to defend its interests and de-risk its economic relations in the current context. This morning, we focused on the next multi-annual financial framework. Our shared responsibility is to have the new long-term budget up and running in the beginning of 2028. To make that possible, we need an overall agreement by the end of this year. That is the only way for funds to continue flowing uninterrupted as of the 1st of January 2028 to our citizens, to our companies, to our farmers. And we are looking forward that Commission, leaders, Member States, European Parliament. Thanks to the work of the Cypriot Presidency, today we move forward on the financial equation. This means we need to ensure that the European Union has the resources it needs to deliver on what Europeans expect from us: a more competitive, a more innovative, a more cohesive, a more autonomous safer and secure Europe. Now negotiations will continue, and the Irish Presidency will prepare a revised negotiating box for our meeting in October. Today, leaders agreed to task our Irish friends to accelerate work on new own resources. We need those additional revenues to reach a deal in December. We also discussed the geopolitical situation, including Ukraine. President Zelensky's presence was a fitting way to demonstrate the European Union's unity, which for the first time since December 2024, conclusions agreed again by the 27 member states. And our determination in supporting Ukraine and work towards a just and lasting peace. The opening of accession negotiations for Ukraine and Moldova this week is a historic step and a clear signal of the European Union's commitment to enlargement. And it builds on the positive momentum created by progress with Montenegro and Albania and by the successful European Union Western Balkans Summit in Tivat. We also review today developments in the Middle East, including Iran and the broader region. The signing of the initial agreement between Washington and Tehran marks a significant breakthrough. This agreement should lead to the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, and we hope it will pave the way for lasting peace, regional stability, and full effective respect for Lebanon's sovereignty. We must not forget the dramatic humanitarian situation in Gaza and the deteriorating conditions in the West Bank. And I welcome the Commission's intention to present options before the next meeting of Foreign Affairs Ministers. Before concluding, we also addressed the fight against illicit drugs. This directly affects the health, safety and security of our citizens. That's why this fight must be pursued at all levels: local, national, European and international. The European Union is stepping up action through stronger cooperation, targeted measures and partnerships with third countries. Thank you very much.
Thank you. President von der Leyen, you have the floor.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much. We had a very productive UCO, so let me jump right in. First on Ukraine. We start with good news. The tide is turning. António and I congratulated President Zelensky on the opening of the first cluster. This is a major milestone. Now our goal is to open more clusters before the summer. And we also agreed on the rollover of the Russian sanctions, and importantly, this time for 12 months, no more for 6 months. And this too sends a very strong message. And we continue our work to finalize the 21st package of sanctions. These are hard-biting sanctions that will keep the pressure on Russia. And at the same time, we have to prepare when negotiations start. Second, on the Middle East, the interim agreement between the United States and Iran is a breakthrough and an important opportunity to ensure freedom of navigation toll-free in the Strait of Hormuz, to ensure that Iran never has nuclear weapons, to address concerns related to the ballistic programs and regional activities, and ultimately to advance peace and security across the region. This crisis has underscored an important lesson. We must not allow the global economy to be held hostage. We need to develop other routes and corridors, for example, in that region, the IMEC. And for that, we will deepen our engagement with our partners in the Gulf and beyond. And this will be a topic that will be discussed the next time we meet the Gulf countries. Finally, what is happening in Lebanon is deeply concerning. A stable and peaceful Middle East also requires a stable and sovereign Lebanon. We support the Lebanese leadership's effort to achieve the disarmament of Hezbollah. At the same time, it is important that Israel respects both the sovereignty and the territorial integrity of Lebanon. Now to my third point. We had very good discussions at G7 earlier this week, and now also last night we had a very productive discussion on the structural overcapacities and the impact on global imbalances. And let me bring it back to Europe with some figures concerning main economic partners. Over the last 5 years, imports, for example, from China into the European Union have increased by 45%. Last year, the European Union recorded its largest ever trade deficit with China, 360 billion euros. That is a deficit of 1 billion euros per day. And for the first time, all member states had a trade deficit. This is not just about cheap imports. We see overcapacities that erode our own manufacturing base. And this is simply not sustainable. We know very well that we must do our homework first to boost our own competitiveness, but we also have to address the global imbalances. Our discussions showed clear support for continuing the path of diversification and de-risking our relationship. On one hand, we must avoid dependencies that can be weaponized. This means that we are accelerating the de-risking process, de-risking, not decoupling. On the other hand, we will keep protecting our market from unfair practices. Europe has already built an extensive toolbox in the recent years. Now we must use it more proactively and more strategically to defend our European interests. And indeed, as President Costa said, the Commission will work on new tools, such as a diversification instrument. I'm pleased that we saw clear support for a European response based on unity among the member states and dialogue with China, which remains crucial. The Commission will take this forward, and the topic will remain high on our common agenda. Now turning to internal matters. Today, of course, we also discussed the next European budget. The Council has now reached an agreement on the new MFF architecture. That is an important step forward. It shows that Member States share the Commission's ambition for a simpler and future-proof budget, a budget that equips Europe to compete, strengthens its security and defence, and its capacity to act in a more challenging world. A budget that will support our farmers, our regions and our communities across the Union. And for the first time, we have a negotiating box with figures, thanks to the Cypriot Presidency. This is another major step forward. Of course, no one sees the ideal budget immediately in this box, but it is a solid basis for negotiation, just as you said, for the next presidency then to take forward. Now we must maintain the level of ambition, and this must be matched by the means to deliver. This is also why we need a robust and stable system of new own resources, and why by our next meeting we should have a shared understanding of how we want to finance the next MFF. Dear Nikos, last but certainly not least, this agreement in the Council was a real breakthrough, and so I want to thank you and specifically also your whole team over there for the extremely hard work, the skillful steer, the overview, the delivery. This was really fantastic, so many, many thanks for that. With the Irish presidency, with this foundation, the Irish presidency has a very good basis to start and to build on. But this is only one of your achievements. Your presidency came at a very demanding time. Cyprus has been vital as a bridge with the Middle East. It really paid off that since many, many years you have excellent relationship to the region, friendship, partnership built on trust. This really paid off. And your work has helped keep us closely engaged with the region when the dialogue mattered most. Your presidency also delivered on Europe's most important priorities, from support to Ukraine to progress on enlargement, the likes of which we haven't seen in years, I must say, from competitiveness and simplification with agreements on a number of omnibuses to a common European system of returns, and I could go on and on and on. The list is long. I also want to congratulate you on the agreement reached on the air passenger rights. It was the first major overhaul of these rules in 2 decades, and they matter so much in the daily lives of European citizens. Passengers enjoy clearer compensation rules now, airlines have greater legal certainty, and everyone benefits. So you and your team can be very, very proud of what you have achieved. Thank you very much. Efaristo, my friend.
Thanks.
President Christodoulides, please.
Dear António and dear Ursula and dear friends, good afternoon. We have just concluded the last European Council during the Cyprus presidency, and in this regard, for Cyprus, this summit marks the culmination of 6 months at the helm of the Council, a journey that we embarked on with great pride and a profound sense of responsibility, and a duty we conducted with through dedication, intense work, steady progress, and tangible delivery. A results-driven presidency from beginning to end. From the outset, we have approached our presidency with the conviction that there are no limits to what we deliver for our Union. We also assume the presidency with a clear vision to give substance to European strategic autonomy, to European independence, as the next necessary step for European integration. And that is actually what our motto encapsulates for a more autonomous Union, open to the world, which has proven not only timely, but increasingly necessary in today's geopolitical environment. Dear friends, we have still 11 days to go. We have a clear picture of the results of the Cyprus presidency across the European agenda, from defence and security to competitiveness, enlargement, social cohesion, and certainly the new MFF. And let me begin with the next MFF. We achieve our goal of presenting a mature negotiating box with figures and securing partial general approaches on the key financial instruments and on other sectoral proposals. This has been a decisive step to take us to the next phase of negotiations and provide a very solid basis for reaching agreement by the end of the year. On Ukraine, let me say that from our corner of the European Union, as the Union's last member state under occupation, it is absolutely clear what is at stake in Ukraine and how indispensable it is to uphold international legality and respect for the UN Charter, which are non-negotiable. So during our presidency, we maintain our unwavering support through agreement on a substantial financial assistance package of 19 billion, while also adopting the 20th package of restrictive measures against Russia. Security and defence, we delivered concrete progress, including through the implementation of SAFE, with financial assistance decisions for 18 member states. We have also the conclusion of the Defence Readiness Omnibus and the advancement of the military mobility agenda. 2 days ago, we agreed on the Council's mandate on the military mobility package, and of course, we initiated during our presidency discussions which are now progressing on multiple levels on giving substance, giving flesh and bone to the mutual assistance clause of Article 42.7 for more European independence. On migration, we deliver agreement on the returns regulation and oversaw the entry into application of the Pact on Migration and Asylum, making an important milestone towards a more effective, balanced and sustainable migration framework. Enlargement was a strategic priority for our presidency. Accession negotiations with Ukraine, Moldova, Albania and Montenegro advanced actively these 6 months. For Ukraine and Moldova, we achieved the completion of the front-loading and officially opened the first cluster in fundamentals. This led us to the historic accession conference with Ukraine and Moldova earlier in the week for Cluster 1. At the same time, we advanced Albania's accession path, having delivered the accession conference on IBAR, and took important steps forward with Montenegro, including through the establishment of the ad hoc working group for the drafting of the accession treaty for Montenegro. On the Middle East, as the President of the Commission very correctly mentioned, a vital region and neighbourhood of the European Union, Cyprus has worked to keep engagement and cooperation with the countries of the region high on the European agenda. During our informal gathering in Nicosia in April, together with António, we brought regional leaders to the table for a very timely discussion on developments in our wider neighbourhood and how we seize this momentum for deeper cooperation. We also secure important outcomes, enhancing our trade partnerships, the signature of the EU-Mercosur Partnership Agreement and of the European Union-Mexico agreements, a broad package of agreements with Switzerland, an agreement on the regulations implementing the tariff-related aspects of the European Union-US joint statement. We have also further advanced the European Union-UK relations by authorising the opening of negotiations on UK participation in the EU internal electricity market and its contribution to cohesion policy, and also by reaching agreement on Erasmus Plus and on Gibraltar, bringing closer to the final outstanding Brexit issue. Strengthening the list is long, and I'm not mentioning...
Sounds like 2 years of presidency.
Strengthening Europe's competitiveness remain at the center of our efforts, advancing the One Europe, One Market agenda co-signed in Cyprus last April. On simplification, we have concluded negotiations on the time-sensitive AI regulation of the digital omnibus and on another 3 packages, defence readiness, support for SMEs and chemicals, whilst we have also delivered on the food and feed safety package. We also concluded the reform of the Union's custom code, representing the most significant modernisation of the customs union framework in decades. We also secure agreement within the Council on the European Business Wallet, the CBAM, and advanced negotiations on e-declaration, which we hope to conclude. At the same time, we made significant progress toward a more integrated energy union, and we aim to reach a general approach on the grids package before the end of our presidency. Furthermore, we remain focused on policies that have a direct impact on our citizens' daily lives, and strengthen democratic participation. Let me just mention that we achieved a decisive breakthrough on the long-awaited revision of the air passengers' right regulation, which was on the table for 13 years, delivering stronger rights for European citizens. We also concluded negotiations with the European Parliament on the coordination of our social security systems, on critical medicines, the protection of adults, and concluded work on the European Electoral Act. I will stop here. I will not mention more.
No, continue. We wait for 15 years.
Yeah, so 13, 15. No, I will stop here because, dear friends, 6 months ago, we took over the presidency with one central aim, with the aim to deliver. And today, I can proudly say that results speak for themselves, from security to defense to competitiveness, enlargement, energy, migration, and social cohesion. The Cyprus presidency has delivered for our European family, our citizens. And serving the helm of the Council has been an extraordinary honor, and one that we made a national mission in Cyprus. The responsibility to be the voice of the 27 member states serves as a powerful reminder that Europe advances when member states drive forward common European interests of our 450 million citizens. I want to express my sincere gratitude to my colleagues in the European Council, to António, to Ursula, to the Commission, to Roberta, the European Parliament. Their contribution along this journey was invaluable, and I wish also to pay special thanks and publicly congratulate our Minister for European Affairs, Ms. Marilena Rauna, under whose oversight this collective national effort was carried out, and who worked in an exemplary manner to carry our presidency forward very, very successfully. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Let me open the floor for questions, and I will start with Maria.
Thank you so much, Maria Tereo, for Euronews. A question for President Costa. In your mandate, you have made being unanimous and being together the 27 a central theme, but when you instructed your most senior member of your cabinet to test whether or not there was a channel of communication possible with Russia, not all member states knew it. What was your political instinct? Why did you believe this was the right time? And what signals were you reading to do it now? And for the President of the Commission, as I understand, yesterday you told the leaders that they have to be prepared and consider a mandate. And a mandate may have to be established, provided that Ukraine is okay with it, to talk to Russia. Can you confirm that? And would you say it is the right time and therefore you back the efforts of President Costa? Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for your question. We had a very good and discussion, very useful, to clarify misunderstandings. First of all, the European Union is not, and we do not intend to be mediators. The European Union is on Ukraine's side. We have been with Ukraine through the war, and we will be with Ukraine after the war. Second, what is clear also is, unfortunately, that we don't have credible signs from Russia that Russia wants to engage in serious negotiations for the time being. What I'm doing through my office is to establish a diplomatic channel, because we cannot depend only on others to interpret Russian messages, and we must be able to convey directly to Russia our own messages. Third, to be very clear, I see no contradiction nor competition between different actors and formats. They are complementary. Only Ukraine can negotiate on behalf of Ukraine. For sure, the coalition of the willing and its leaders will also need to have a role in what concerns security guarantees. But in what concerns the European Union's interests, they will need to be defended by the European Union institutions in accordance with the treaties. And all of you know, Ursula and I always work as a team.
Yes, Ukraine wants peace and Europe wants peace. The only one consistently choosing violence is Russia. Our entire continent is at risk. And this is why Europe must be one of the architects of a just and lasting peace. Ukraine is in the driver's seat. We, as European Union, stand by Ukraine. And sooner or later, Russia will have to come to the negotiation table, notably through the pressure of our sanctions. And when that moment comes, we need a united European message to President Putin. President Costa and I will continue working closely with President Zelensky to achieve this urgent goal. President Costa represents the 27 member states. The instruments for example, energy, immobilized assets, sanctions, defense industry, and others are with the Commission. And I can only confirm that from day one on, we have been excellently working together, and this will continue.
Thank you. Evie?
Γεια σας, από το Κυπριακό Πρακτορείο Ειδήσεων. Θα ήθελα να κάνω την ερώτηση στα ελληνικά. Ήθελα να ρωτήσω τον Πρόεδρο Χριστοδουλίδη πώς αποτιμάτε συνολικά τα αποτελέσματα της Κυπριακής Προεδρίας του Συμβουλίου της Ευρωπαϊκής Ένωσης, ιδιαίτερα υπό το φως της προόδου που καταγράφηκε σε σημαντικούς φακέλους όπως η διεύρυνση και το πολυετές δημοσιονομικό πλαίσιο. Θεωρείτε δεδομένης και της προόδου που έχει επιτευχθεί, ότι είμαστε πιο κοντά στο στόχο για επίτευξη συμφωνίας πριν από το τέλος του έτους? Και θα ήθελα και σχόλια και από τον κύριο Κώστα και την κυρία Φόντερ Λάιεν. Ευχαριστώ.
Όπως είπα προηγουμένως, να το επαναλάβω, είμαι πάρα πολύ περήφανος για τη χώρα μας, είμαι πάρα πολύ περήφανος για τα αποτελέσματα της Κυπριακής Προεδρίας σε πολλούς τομείς, αλλά να αναφερθώ ειδικότερα στους τομείς που έχετε αναφέρει, στη διεύρυνση και στο πολυετές δημοσιονομικό πλαίσιο. Να ξεκινήσω από το Μαυροβούνιο. Ήταν η πρώτη χώρα που επισκέφθηκα μέσα στο πλαίσιο της προετοιμασίας ανάληψης της Προεδρίας του Συμβουλίου της Ευρωπαϊκής Ένωσης και πετύχαμε 3 διακυβερνητικές διασκέψεις. Καταρχήν κλείσιμο 4 κεφαλαίων και σύσταση, έχει ιδιαίτερη σημασία αυτό, σύσταση της ad hoc ομάδας εργασίας για τη συνθήκη προσχώρησης, η οποία αυτή η ομάδα ήταν η πρώτη που έγινε στην Ευρωπαϊκή Ένωση μετά από 16 χρόνια. Στην ουσία, μέσα από τη δουλειά μας δώσαμε προοπτική στην ενταξιακή πορεία των Δυτικών Βαλκανίων, στην σημασία που έχει η διεύρυνση ως γεωπολιτικό εργαλείο. Ουκρανία και Μολδαβία, το άνοιγμα του πρώτου συμπλέγματος πριν από λίγες μέρες, μετά από 2 χρόνια διεξόδου, και εμείς ως Προεδρία είμαστε έτοιμοι να προχωρήσουμε αν υπάρχουν τα πολιτικά δεδομένα. Αλβανία, διακυβερνητική διάσκεψη τον Μάιο, επιβεβαιώνοντας την εκπλήρωση των ενδιάμεσων κριτηρίων του πρώτου συμπλέγματος, και είμαι σίγουρος ότι και η νέα Προεδρία πρέπει να χτίσει σε αυτή τη νέα δυναμική που η Κυπριακή Προεδρία, σε συνεργασία πάντα με την Επιτροπή, έδωσε στο θέμα της διεύρυνσης. Έρχομαι στο πολυετές δημοσιονομικό πλαίσιο. Ο προϋπολογισμός της Ευρωπαϊκής Ένωσης, ένας προϋπολογισμός που πρέπει να αποτυπώνει τις σημερινές μας προτεραιότητες, λαμβάνοντας τις προκλήσεις που έχουμε να αντιμετωπίσουμε, αλλά και την ίδια στιγμή σημαντικούς φακέλους του πολυετές δημοσιονομικού πλαισίου που έχουν απήχηση στους Ευρωπαίους πολίτες. Αναφέρουμε στο Ταμείο Συνοχής, στην κοινή αγροτική πολιτική, και είμαστε περήφανοι που πετύχαμε 2 βασικούς στόχους. Έχουμε παρουσιάσει ένα αναθεωρημένο διαπραγματευτικό πλαίσιο με αριθμούς, και η συζήτηση σήμερα, οφείλω να πω, στο Ευρωπαϊκό Συμβούλιο ήταν πάρα πολύ επικοδομητική, μαζί με 3 μερικές γενικές προσεγγίσεις του Συμβουλίου επί των κύριων χρηματοδοτικών εργαλείων. Επαναλαμβάνω, παρά τις διαφορετικές προσεγγίσεις των κρατών. Την περασμένη εβδομάδα η παρουσίαση από μέρους μας του αναθεωρημένου διαπραγματευτικού πλαισίου οδηγεί σε ένα ισορροπημένο συμβιβασμό, γιατί το τελικό αποτέλεσμα θα είναι ένας ισορροπημένος συμβιβασμός. Σήμερα στην παρέμβασή μου, ξεκινώντας την παρέμβασή μου στο Ευρωπαϊκό Συμβούλιο, είπα στους συναδέλφους μου ότι θεωρώ επιτυχία το γεγονός ότι κανείς από όλους εσάς δεν είναι 100% ικανοποιημένος με τους αριθμούς που έχει θέσει η Κυπριακή Προεδρία. Ακριβώς γιατί θα πρέπει να είναι ένας ισορροπημένος συμβιβασμός, και κλείνω για το πολιετές δημοσιονομικό πλαίσιο, τονίζοντας την ιδιαίτερη πολιτική σημασία να καταλήξουμε σε αποτέλεσμα μέχρι το τέλος του 2026. Ευχαριστώ.
You want to speak first?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Did I get it right? You wanted also a comment
Your
on
comment,
that?
Yeah.
To enlargement and to the budget.
Okay.
Yes. This was a very successful presidency. And also in view of enlargement, this was a very successful presidency. You just heard the President describe the progress. I think what made it so successful was the excellent negotiations, the encouragement for the candidate countries to do the necessary reforms, but then the reward also of opening clusters or chapters or even closing chapters again. So there is a clear message out there. The finish line is in sight for some of them, and this is, of course, enormously motivating for all the candidate countries, and that the merits get rewarded. And what the budget is concerned, I'm very grateful that we made a huge step forward with the partial general agreement. That means the architecture is now agreed by all 27. That's very important, because you recall we had discussions about the modernizing of the architecture, the national and regional partnership plans, the competitiveness fund, the Global Europe Fund. It's a completely new and modern architecture, and this has now been agreed by all 27, so this is very important and a big step forward, and that gave us the possibility that the presidency presented the figures, and indeed I think the debate went much better than I had expected. Very concrete, very clear, the comments of the different leaders, so that for us and the next presidency, there's a good food for thought on how to try to put the puzzle together so that it fits for everybody.
I would like also to congratulate the Cypriot presidency. It was an excellent presidency. President Christodoulidis presented here a very long report, and they don't say everything. But concretely on enlargement, the main problem of the success of the Cypriot presidency, as we do with the enlargement, we need to wait more or less for 17 years to have a new Cypriot presidency. But it's a good sign of success, not only by this historic moment with Moldova and Ukraine, but also because we are moving very fast with Montenegro, and it's credible to believe that it's possible to close all the negotiations by the end of this year. We are moving forward very well with Albania. It's possible to finish the negotiations by the end of 2027, and with all the other partners we are moving forward. This is very important. And what the Cypriot presidents achieve regarding the budget, to be very clear, it was the most difficult step and the most important step. Because when you talk about the architecture, what we are talking is about what will be the next budget of the European Union. And it will be a completely different budget, a really modernized budget. Of course, keeping our identitary policies like cohesion or agriculture, but investing more and more on competitiveness, investing more and more in research and development, in investment and development on our industry to create better and quality jobs. This is the huge movement of this budget. More investment on competitiveness and more investment on security and defense. And this is already achieved. Now we need just to discuss figures. It's important, but the most important is in what we will expend our money. And this is already decided. And thank you very much, Nikos, for your work.
Next question, Kim.
Thanks. Kim McCrail from the Wall Street Journal. This is a question on China. President Costa, you said there was agreement for the Commission to develop and eventually complement the trade defense toolbox. When is eventually? And for President von der Leyen, how can you make sure that a new diversification instrument doesn't sit on the sidelines and not get used, much like the anti-coercion instrument? And what opportunity do you see for using existing trade defense tools more proactively? Thanks.
No, it's simple. As you know, our strategy is clear. De-risking, not decoupling. We want to engage on dialogue, but we need to address the challenge that we are facing. 1 billion trade deficit per day is simple and unsustainable. And we cannot continue to raise this issue without any concrete results. And until now, unfortunately, China didn't deliver. That's the reason because the leaders asked the Commission to look at our toolbox and to see what we can do immediately and what we need to do to develop our toolbox. It's what we asked the Commission.
Yeah. Basically, the new instrument, if I want to give him to feature, it's country agnostic. That's very important. But it's in general a instrument that supports companies to de-risk faster. What we see is that the de-risking in the business sector has been far too slow over the years. So the risks were visible, but the reaction to the risks have not been fast enough and appropriate enough. Now, to your question whether this tool will be used, the best would be it will not be used because things change for the better, of course, but because the pressure is high. And if the pressure is high, the instrument, of course, will be used because there's a need for improvement. We've seen the figures. They speak for themselves. And we have to rebalance our relationship.
Thank you. I will take one final question. Andrew.
Thank you. Andrew Gray from Reuters. President Costa, on your outreach to the Kremlin, why now? You said that you need the ability to communicate directly, convey your own messages, but obviously the invasion started in 2022, so why now? And what do you say to critics who say that your initiative was not coordinated with member states, that you didn't have a mandate for it, and that now is not the time to be talking to Russia, now is the time to increase pressure on Russia?
Of course, it's time to increase pressure on Russia because we recently approved the 20 package. Today, we approved the rollover of the sanctions, this time not only for 6 months, but for 12 months, and we are preparing the 21st package. It's, of course, time to continue to support Ukraine. We recently approved the 90 billion supporting loan to Ukraine to support Ukrainian essential needs to 2026 and 2027. We continue to support Ukraine by military, economic, and also diplomatic efforts. But it's precisely because we need also to support Ukraine through diplomatic means that we need to have a direct diplomatic channel with Russia. Unfortunately, the time to negotiate is not arrived yet. But in any case, we need to establish immediately this direct contact, because we need to listen to them and we need to convey to them. And when all the leaders repeatedly said that the European Union need to be seated at the table of in the future negotiation table, of course we need to start talking, to have a direct contact with Russia. And the treaties are very clear. And we don't want to replace Ukraine, because only Ukraine, only President Zelensky has the legitimacy to negotiate on behalf of Ukraine. Of course, we don't compete with the member states, with the coalition of the willing, because when it comes to security guarantees, of course, who have military forces need to intervene in negotiations, for sure. But in any case, the European Union has concrete interest in our own security, in the security of our member states. There are a lot of decisions that we take, and President von der Leyen recalled here, sanctions, frozen assets, different things, and only the EU institutions can talk on behalf of the European Union. And the treaties are very clear. And as the very beginning of my tenure, all the European institutions work together as a team. And especially me and President von der Leyen, we all work always as a team, and we will continue to work as a team.
So, my friend, now...
Thank you very much. That's it for today.
Handshake.
Handshake. Mr. President, thank you very much, dear Nikos. Mr. President, thank you very much, dear Nikos. In the face of putting in place new instruments to channel capital into innovation, industry and jobs. But Europe's competitiveness, and we are committed to economic relations based on rules. Thanks to the work of the Cypriot Presidency, today additional revenues to reach a deal in December. We also discussed the geopolitical, regional stability and full effective respect for Lebanon. This agreement should lead to the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. Actions through stronger cooperation, targeted measures and
negotiations start. Second, on the Middle East, the interim agreement between the example from China into the European Union have increased by 45%. Programs and regional activities, and ultimately to advance peace at a very demanding time. Cyprus has been vital as a bridge.